Finally, in SEAL training, there's a bell. All you have to do to quit is ring the bell. Ring the bell, and you no longer have to wake up at 5 o'clock. Ring the bell, and you no longer have to do the runs, the obstacle course, the PT, and you no longer have to endure the hardships of training. If you want to change the world, don't ever ring the bell.
You are listening to the Kill the Quit podcast hour presented by Kill Clip Performance Drinks.
Enjoy drinking Kill Clip after sweaty workouts, big rides, full rounds, long days, longer nights, or whenever you feel the need to get back up to full speed.
Kill Clip Performance Drinks for Warriors. Ignite, endure, recover. And now, Mark Zinno.
Welcome into another episode of Kill the Quit, brought to you by Kill Clip. I am your host, Mark Zinno. This week's guest, our badassador, is Dave Hippensteel. He's a three-time reigning Masters champion at the CrossFit Games, 60 and over division, folks, 60 and over. Former high school football player, track runner, and a decathlon runner and springboard diver. And on top of that, well, he's actually a dentist, owning 2 dental practices as well. He is Dave Hippensteel, and he joins us here on Kill the Quit. Dave, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Hey, man, thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here. I appreciate the privilege to be here.
Well, look, amazing kind of resume. It's a variety of different things, and obviously being a Masters champion at the CrossFit Games 60 and over division, you don't sound 60 and over. You don't look 60 and over, so we'll start there and just kind of, give you a big pat on the back for just keep kicking it,
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's been an awesome journey.
Well, let's start back at the beginning of that journey. As I mentioned, you were a former football player, track runner. Give me kind of an idea of your childhood, what you grew up like, and how you got into sports. And, obviously getting to CrossFit, but that probably wasn't on the horizon early on. No, didn't. No, they invented it. I feel like they invented it for me later on because I needed it, and because it was just like the perfect match for me. But growing up, I actually, my dad was big into golf. And he got my sister into golf, and we were playing in tournaments at 8 years old, and I got bored pretty easily because the sport was too slow for me. So once I got involved with, once I got to high school, junior high school, and actually I was pretty wild growing up. I was pretty rebellious, and my dad wanted me to do sports to keep me under control. And it didn't work right away, but it eventually worked. And I found myself in sports, and I found my identity in doing sports. And the bigger the challenge, the better for me. So I was 150 pounds in high school, and they saw my potential, even though before I saw it. They put me at defensive end, changed it beginning of my senior year, and I just thrived in that position. I was able to get around the linemen, able to sack quarterbacks, and that became the funnest thing in the universe for me, is sacking the quarterback. And so that was kind of like my beginning in sports in high school. Did you want to grow that further on, like after high school?
Yeah, I did. But at 150 pounds, I did go to college. My football coach, knew the coach down at a college in Dover, Delaware, Wesley College. It was a junior college at the time, and they thought that might be a good place for me to start because they saw I had potential. I had athleticism. Even though I didn't have the size, I made up for it with speed, quickness, and strength. And but my career in college was short lived. I sprained my neck during football camp. And, because you're hitting, I'm 150 pounds, I'm hitting a 275 pound lineman, and it's like hitting a brick wall. And that was just kind of like, that's what happened. And so hurt my neck and kind of, made me change directions in college. And actually that's actually the interesting thing there is like, I had never really studied in high school, just kind of got by. And once I got hurt in college, playing football, I said, well, I've never tried studying before. Why don't I try that and see how it goes? And I think I aced the biology test, the very first test, kind of equaling there was a gal there that was valedictorian from her high school. She was the only other one in the class that got 100 in the first biology test. And so kind of like, that was kind of like the impetus I needed to kind of change direction and kind of focus on academics and just keep that kind of philosophy of trying harder at good things.
While you were playing football, Dave, I'm curious, being so undersized, did you ever feel like, that you were just overmatched, that eventually, this was going to fizzle out because the guys were just bigger, faster, stronger kind of deal?
I don't think that crossed my mind, until I got to college, and it was a bit intimidating because I was probably the smallest guy, and trying to change positions, it was just something that, but I'm not a quitter, and so everything I do, I'm gonna keep going, no matter what, and until I actually hit that brick wall and it breaks me, and that's probably what happened. And I didn't break my neck, but I hurt it pretty bad. So I was in one of those collars for like 8 weeks.
Really?
Yeah. So,
what was that like?
It was a bummer because I'm just like born to be active. I mean, I want to move all the time, every day, and so that was tough for me. But at the time, it worked perfectly because it forced me. It's like, well, I can't really do much else, so I might as well study and see how that goes. And so that's kind of how things worked out that way.
Now, did the doctors tell you were done playing football? Did the coach tell you? How did that whole thing transpire?
Yeah, I think I remember seeing a neurologist because I'd see these I think I saw an orthopedist, and they nothing was broken, but I had this sharp pain in my neck, and it just wasn't going away. And so I went to the neurologist, he checked things out, and I was okay, but it just like I couldn't get rid of the pain, and it just like I knew it basically was not recommended that I continue what I was doing in football. So
what did the coach say when you told him that, or when the doctor told him that it wasn't recommended you play?
I think pretty much it was just, I think he just knew it was the end, for me, and he didn't want to push me into something that would make it worse. They were smart that way, I think, and I think it was a good decision. So,
I mean, were you disappointed, heartbroken?
I loved football, and it gave me an identity in high school, and it really brought me out of a part of life where I needed something like that. I needed that physical challenge to get me out. So I think there was a part of me that was bummed, but it's just like I accepted it, and it's like, okay, what's next? What's the next challenge? And at the time it was academics. And so I kind of used that as just applied the same, energy and focus on academics that I did in sports, and it just, panned out really well. So, because I graduated, it was actually junior college, so it was 2 years, and so I ended up, an honor student, and I guess I graduated cum laude, coming from nothing in high school, and ended up. Actually, my brother actually was the one that talked me into going to Cal State Fresno to do decathlon. It's like, and because I was all set to go to this other college in West Virginia, and my dad was all focused on that because my dad was a dentist, and so I had that kind of a little bit of pressure, subtle pressure to keep on my academics. And both my parents thought, he's going to California, forget dental school now. But I went out to dental school. I did decathlon with my brother. He was kind of like my coach, but I kept my academics up the whole time I was out there doing decathlon, doing springboard diving, that kind of thing. So it's pretty cool journey. We had, our coach was Dutch Warmerdam, who was the first man over 15 feet in the pole vault. And this was back in the, he was back in, I was at school late 70s, and he was, I think he would have been an Olympic athlete, but they didn't have the Olympics that year because of the war in the 1940s. But it was a bamboo pole and a sawdust pit, is where he was the first man over 15 feet in a pole vault. So
wow,
world
pretty
record
impressive.
holder. Yeah. So he wasn't the greatest coach, but he was a good man. And we just kind of learned decathlon on our own. My brother actually coached me in pole vault, and within 3 months, I think I was over 13 feet. Had never pole vaulted before, and so that was kind of that was a cool time. I was able to balance, my academics with that sport. I think more so than when I was doing football. So it just kind of worked out for me.
He is Dave Hippensteel, our guest this week on Kill the Quit, brought to you by Killcliff. I am your host, Mark Zinno. So you get into doing decathlons, which is odd. I mean, it's not like there's a lot of people who do it. What was your best event?
So I think pole vault was actually my best event. I had never, in high school, the other sport that I did, I tried baseball for a while, but I think I got, that sport also was too slow for me. So I got into track and field. And so in high school, I did hurdles and I did long jump. I did triple jump. I actually was the best triple jumper in the school. And I hadn't even done it before. And I think I was tied with a senior in high school. That was a big change too. Kind of an awakening, like, wow, I can do this sport. I can triple jump. Never practiced it before, but still, like, when it was one of the best on the team the first time I did it. But did triple jump, did hurdles, both intermediate and the high hurdles in high school, and the long jump, and so that kind of gave me a little bit of a foundation to try decathlon once I got to college. But so I had the hurdles back, even though I'm only 5'8". Doing the college high hurdles came up to my chest, but we were still, both my brother and I were both the same size, but we were both decent hurdlers. And, but yeah, pole vault was definitely my favorite. And I got the most points in that event.
So
even though I'd never done it before.
What was your worst event?
Worst event, probably shot put, 33 or 16 pound ball. I threw it over 30 feet, so I got some points with it, but certainly size is a disadvantage in that event. So,
was it something you just weren't good at, or did you just not like it?
Oh, you mean the shot put?
Yeah.
No, I loved it. And, because again, it was a physical challenge. It's a 16 pound ball, in college. And, I love the challenge of it, but, it was just one of those things where, it's tough to throw that ball if you don't have any weight behind you.
Yeah,
and
makes sense.
So, yeah.
So how far did you think you wanted to go with decathlon? Was it just something that you were doing to kill time between studying? I mean, what was your mentality about it?
I mean, my brother was so focused on the Olympics. He actually lived in his car for 2 years because he didn't want any distractions. He was one of the first guys, like this is back in the late 70s. He wore a 40-pound, he created this weight vest with I think shotgun shells in it, or lead pellets. He put in this, he had this thing sewed, and it was a 40-pound weight vest that he would wear 24/7 because he felt like that would get him to the next level of where he needed to be to make the Olympic team and all that stuff. And he ended up being he was All-American his senior year in college in the decathlon. But so he had that dream. When I was into it, I had that dream also. And I'm not sure what it was. I think what I wanted to do is stay focused on the pole vault because I think academics was still kind of a goal at the time. I had gotten, good success in academics, and I didn't want to lose that. And decathlon, doing it for a year or so, year and a half, almost 2 years. It's tough to train for 10 events and still maintain that straight A average. And in sciences, I was pre-med, pre-dental. So I think that just kind of I loved the challenge of it, but I just kind of wasn't able to handle both. So that's when I actually switched to springboard diving because I thought, well, I can do that. I wanted to do just pole vault, but my coach said, no, we need you as a decathlete or not at all. And whether it was the right decision or not, I ended up going with with diving, because I love that kind of stuff. Also, anything acrobatics, anything gymnastics, has always been a good thing for me. So I think that's why I love CrossFit so much, because it combines not just weightlifting and endurance, but the gymnastic stuff also.
Right. Just the springboard diver thing, where did that go? I mean, we kind of glossed over it real quick.
Yeah. I was, well, actually they needed, I walked onto the team, went, met the coach one day. I forget who it was that told me, hey, they're looking for divers over the swimming team. And so I went over there, introduced myself, and started diving. And I only had ever done diving just kind of recreationally, but I knew how to do flips and, back flips, front flips. It kind of came natural to me. And so I walked on the team, and they wanted me to, be on the team. So I think I was the only diver, actually. So they really needed divers, and so it was a perfect fit for me. So I got to travel all around. We get to travel a lot all around California doing decathlon, and I also, the same thing happened with the diving team. I got to go see California while I was in college, just all for free, because I was part of the swim team. So we'd go, whether it was San Fran or San Diego, and all the different schools out there. So it was a neat time for me.
What did you think was tougher, the events in the decathlon or springboard diving?
Oh, definitely decathlon. And the coolest thing, and here's the thing for today, I think that, the biggest takeaway from doing decathlon is I knew there was absolutely no doubt I was in the absolute best shape of my life. It was the closest thing to CrossFit that when I look back, and I look back at even other sports, even like wrestling, or because I did do wrestling. I wrestled a little bit. I dabbled in wrestling a little bit in high school, and then a little bit in college, and actually got hurt both times. So I had some real good success in wrestling because of my strength and my size. Anyway, it was one of those things where you look at the decathlon and you look at the CrossFit today, and you're combining strength and endurance and acrobatics and agility and balance, all those things that the decathlon requires. And so it got me super fit. And to this day, I look back at that. I remember a lot my football days and the football camps, and in high school and then in college. And I loved being in the best shape of my life. And I think I just fell in love with that. And that's why when I discovered CrossFit later on, it just held on. I just held on to it, right. And still holding on to it even at this age. Because there's nothing like it. It became my quest for life, I think, to be the fittest possible.
He is Dave Hippensteel, our Badassador of the Week here on Kill the Quit, brought to you by Killcliff. I'm your host, Mark Zinno. When we come back, we'll ask Dave what's next after college and decathlon and springboard diving, and how he gets into CrossFit, and also how he gets into motocross. You'll hear all that coming up next on Kill the Quit, brought to you by Killcliff.
You're listening to the Kill the Quit podcast hour, presented by Killcliff Performance Drinks.
Killcliff, performance drinks for warriors, to get you up, get you through, and get you back to full speed.
And now, back to the show with host Mark Zinno.
Welcome back to Kill the Quit, brought to you by Killcliff. Once again, I'm your host, Mark Zinno. Our guest this week, Dave Hippensteel, a 3-time reigning Masters champion at the CrossFit Games in the 60 and over division. Also, he is a dentist, owning 2 dental practices, but certainly a life of athletics and a life of staying in shape has brought him to this point. When we last left off, Dave, you're kind of done with college and the decathlon thing and the springboard diver thing, but on the horizon is CrossFit somewhere down the road, and how do you stumble upon it, and what did it mean to you? And kind of give us the background and take us from what happened after college until you found this whole new physical challenge that you wanted.
Well, I think, after college, I got accepted to dental school, and so ended up going to dental school. And, while I was in dental school, it's really, it's pretty much 16-hour days, and, you're either in class or you're studying. And so for those 4 years, it was tough to kind of do any kind of physical activity. But I remember getting out on occasion, you get with other students that had an athletic background, and you'd go out and you just do some running, or you do some, pull-ups at the local, elementary school playground or whatever. You find some bars and do stuff like that. And, but, couldn't be real consistent. But once I got out, it's like, okay, what am I going to do now? I just don't want to run, because that's not challenging enough. That's too much stress on one joint, one system. So it's like, well, maybe I always wanted to do triathlons. It's like, it's a huge, amazing challenge. And it's like, let me try that and see what I can do. And had really never swam very much in college. I was a diver, but I never did any consistent swimming. But taught myself to swim, and biking came pretty natural. And I've been running forever. So put it all together and started racing triathlons. And it was the kind of thing where I felt great. Once again, it's like I got in the best shape of my life doing triathlons. It's certainly different than CrossFit, but it's certainly, at the time, that was the the best choice of what was available out there for being able to race and being involved in sports and getting in the best shape you could possibly be in.
What was tougher about triathlons, the physical aspect or the mental?
I don't know. I don't know if I ever separate that. I think they go hand in hand. You're out there. The physical aspect for me is like, I always wanted to do that. I'm always wanting to push, always never wanting to quit. And so I don't know. I think they're equally challenging, because you've got to continue to convince yourself to keep moving, to keep going. And no matter how hard it gets, you just got to keep going. You get that pace, and you just stay on that pace. Then you stay focused on that. So I think they're both a challenge, and I think that's maybe what I loved about it.
Did I guess kind of when you have those moments during a race, whether you cramp up or your legs feel like 10,000-pound weights or whatever. Yeah. I mean, you talk about that mental stamina to push through that.
Yes.
That is kind of more of what I'm alluding to in the standpoint of, is that the tougher hurdle to overcome, or is it your body kind of almost betraying you?
Yeah, well, I think maybe the physical challenge, because I think I've always got that toughness mentally to push through and to push beyond my physical limits. So I think just having that ability to push through mentally just continues to make your physical challenge. You reach the limits, and it's like you're pushing till your body can't go anymore, or till you cramp up, or that kind of thing. So I think but then when you finish that race, it's like you're immediately thinking, okay, how can I do the next race better? How can I prepare better physically for this next triathlon coming up? And I ended up I never did. I think I trained for a half Ironman one time. I never did the full ones, because I felt like I was, I had kids, raising a family, having a dental practice. I knew that I couldn't commit to that kind of time. So the Olympic distance were the best, solution for me. And I felt like I got still in the best shape of my life doing that. And I think, actually hearing guys like Hinshaw talk about how it broke their body down to do the longer triathlons, I think I made a good choice back then. Because the Olympic distance is a mile swim, a 25 mile bike ride, and then a 10K run. Okay. So that's the majority of what I did. And there were some great races that I got involved in. Grew up in Pennsylvania, so I was back in the Pennsylvania area during that phase of my life. And so
now, did you try to best your personal time each time you went out, or was it just enough to complete it for you?
Yeah, no. There was always a competition. I always wanted to do better. I never stopped doing that for sure. No matter what, I mean, the only thing that changes is the environment. Like I remember did a couple mile ocean swims. I know the one year it was New Jersey, Seaside Heights Triathlon. Water temperature was 58 degrees. That was pretty crazy. So that was a cool challenge to get through that. Had a wetsuit and everything, but it's still, your feet and your face froze out there. They pulled a few guys out that swim. Then another mile long swim was down in Ocean City, Maryland. Did another one of those, but yeah. So it was always a competition to me. Always wanted to do better. Always after the races, going back to the drawing board. It's like, okay, how can I train harder? How can I focus on any weaknesses? Do I need to do more swimming now? Do I need to do more running? Do I need to do more biking? Technique. Took a couple technique classes for swimming, that kind of thing. So yeah, it was always about doing better the next time.
Did you ever just run a marathon? It almost seems like it's, for lack of a better term, like beneath your physical aptitude. I mean, you've done all these other things, but yeah. I'm surprised that you haven't said, yeah, I just ran a marathon and just crossed it off the list kind of deal.
Yeah. I did do a half marathon, and it went well, but I kind of used that for training for the triathlon. I just for me, and I think when we start talking about CrossFit, I think one of the attractions is I like versatility. I like multi-dimensioned sports. I like to be challenged in various ways, and so just doing one event for some reason doesn't appeal to me. And so that's, I don't know if that's just the way I'm made.
Sure.
Or what, but that's just kind of how things have evolved for me.
No, seems like a good enough reason. Again, it's Kill the Quit, brought to you by Kill Cliff. I'm your host, Mark Zinno. Our guest this week, Dave Hippensteel, 3-time reigning Masters champion at the CrossFit Games in the 60 and over division. Let me ask you, as you're doing these triathlons, how old are you at this point in time?
I started triathlons in my 30s. So
okay.
After dental school, I was mid 30s doing triathlons.
And you do this for how long?
I probably for, let's see, it would be like during the 1990s, and up until I discovered motocross, there were guys down the street, and I always loved motorcycles. In fact, I wanted to race motorcycles. I wanted to ride a motorcycle when I was a kid, and my dad refused. He just wouldn't let me. He just said, nope, I don't want to be picking you up off the street, broken body. And so I just kind of like, it stayed in the back of my head. I always kind of had that desire. And where I was training for triathlons, I lived out in the country outside of, kind of between Philadelphia and Allentown. And I was end of a long lane. I was going out doing all these, 10-mile runs, 7-mile runs, whatever, or my 30-mile bike rides. And I'd pass our neighbors who had just put in a dirt bike track in their backyard, or, they're like an old farmer's field, and they turned it into a dirt bike track. And I'd go drive, ride my bike by or running by, and I'd see these guys, and I'd kind of like, on the way back, I'd stop and I'd watch. And it's like, man, does that look like fun or what? And I was just about turning 40, and they had a bike for sale, and I bought the bike and started. I went out in my backyard, and my son was into BMX, so he had these little, BMX jumps, these bicycle jumps, and I started taking this dirt bike, and I started doing these little jumps. And at the end, and it's a time in my life when the stress of running a dental practice and raising a family was kind of at its peak, and I kind of was just kind of feeling overwhelmed, and I needed an outlet. And for some reason, the triathlon was good, but it wasn't enough at the time. And I started doing these jumps, and the more I did these jumps, I started feeling better. Like it was just like you had to focus 100% on what you were doing, and just you get in this zone while you're motocrossing and hitting these jumps. And so I think at that point, I just started making bigger jumps, and then I started racing. I did some trail races first, And then my neighbors were big into motocross racing, so I started doing motocross racing, and I put these jumps in my backyard, and like 65, 60. I started with like 30 footers, and then 40 footers, and then uphill 60-foot double, and then the biggest jump I had in my backyard was a 90 footer. So you take off, and there's like a 50-foot gap, and you'd land about 85, 90 feet from where you took off.
How the hell big is your backyard?
Yeah, I had 10 acres.
Oh, dear
and,
Lord.
It was an unbelievable time, and it exactly what I needed. And that was remember because I discovered that motocrossers were some of the best in shape people in the world next to soccer players, and so that just kind of stuck with me. And it's like, I know I'm getting in really good shape doing this, besides the fact that I just love this, and so it's just like I was born to do it. And so I raced for about 5 years. But as you know, motocross, as I discovered, at any given time, 5 of the top best racers in the world are injured. That's kind of what I discovered. And so I'd break a finger, or I tore an Achilles, broke a collarbone. And I'd never broken any bones playing football, doing pole all my life until I hit motocross. And so, but man, it was an awesome 5 years. And my kids, I got my son, my oldest son, John, was probably about 9 or 10 at the time. And so I got him a dirt bike, and it was one of the things that we could do on weekends. We go down to New Jersey and do the sand pits. There's like 500, 1,000 acres of sand pits. And there was, bunch of, 500 motorcycle guys or, 4-wheelers and dirt bikers down there any given weekend. And we would just have a blast. And so kind of grew up, again at age 40 doing that, and just absolutely loved it.
It seems that there have been a lot of stages throughout your life, Dave, where you kind of get this, for lack of a better term, injection of youth, if you will, by being challenged with a new sport. Do you look back on that and think it just happened that way, or is that almost by design?
I think it is by design. I think that's how God created us. I don't know. And especially for me, it's like, I've just always been that way. I remember actually one of the parts I missed, when I between college and dental school, I worked for work construction, building houses. And so after I got out of dental school, it's like I was living in town in a townhouse, and I saw this trailer on 10 acres for sale. And I said, I think we're going to move. So I think we were only in town for about a year, and decided to move, bought this trailer on 10 acres, and only had our oldest son at the time. And so we moved to this 10 acres, which eventually that's where the dirt bike track evolved. And then I decided to build my house. I was gonna get somebody to build it. I was gonna get a log cabin. And then I just decided, like, you know what? I know enough. I know subcontractors. I'm just gonna get started here. And I built my own house. And it's just kind of like I do those physical challenges throughout my life as I look back, and it's like I kind of make a decision, I kind of visualize it, and then I just go for it.
Well, if you have some free time and you'd like to build me a new house, I'm totally game. Knock yourself out. I can kind of give you what I want, and the plot of land. I mean, I'll take care of buying the plot of land. You just build it. I think we're good.
There you go.
Seems like a fair trade if you ask me, but to say the least, there's a lot of people who do a lot of things with their spare time. Just randomly building a house isn't one of them.
Yeah, that's okay. And I didn't look at it like that, but people would, like, I had an accountant that used to say, it's like, oh, I think I'll do triathlon. It's like, oh, he does triathlon. Oh, I think I'll race motocross. Oh, he does races motocross. I think I'll build a house. And I don't know, I don't look at it that way. I just, like, I see things, and it's like I visualize it, and I just do it. Anyway, yeah. So I did it again in Tennessee when we moved to Nashville, Tennessee. Did the same thing, kind of put up a house and then moved there about 15 years ago.
Like I said, if you're ever down in Atlanta, swing by.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Just let me know you're coming ahead of time. I'll take care of everything. You just get that house built and we'll be good to go. He is Dave Hippensteel, our Badassador of the Week here on Kill the Quit, brought to you by Killcliff. When we come back, Dave is on a collision course with CrossFit and how he ends up becoming a 3-time Masters Division champion, all at the age of over 60 years old. That's coming up next on Kill the Quit, brought to you by Killcliff.
You are listening to the Kill the Quit Podcast Hour presented by Kill Clip Performance Drinks, proud partner of the Navy SEAL Foundation.
Welcome back to Kill the Quit, brought to you by Kill Cliff. Our guest this week, Dave Hippensteel, a 3-time reigning Masters champion at the CrossFit Games in the 60 and over division. I am your host, Mark Zinno, and when we last left off, Dave was done with decathlon, done with triathlon, done with building houses, done with motocross, and CrossFit stands on the horizon. So when do you come across this new fad, this new kind of physical challenge in your life?
So I was probably mid-50s, by mid-50s, because I did motocross for a while. And then I actually got back into triathlon when my son John got into triathlons. He actually went to and qualified for the Hawaii Ironman, his first Ironman. And so that was a pretty cool dream come true for him and for us, seeing him race at Hawaii, in the Hawaii Ironman I think it was 2011. But it was right around that time I was doing a lot of I was just doing triathlons with him, but then wanting to be a little bit stronger. And so I started getting back into weightlifting, which I had done when I was in college and during decathlon and obviously during football, and so off and on. But I really got into it for some reason, kind of mid-50s, and still doing. And then, I know what it was. The movie 300 came out. And so all I knew was that I was working out at this gym at the time, and just a Globo gym, and saw the movie 300, and then somebody told me about the 300 workout. You know, it was the 25 pull-ups, and then there was a bunch of other things in that. It was 50 deadlifts right at 135, something like that. But so I heard about that workout, and so I started doing that workout. And I think at the time it took me like 20 minutes to do the workout. And when I fast forward, and I'll tell you about that once I get to that, but I was doing that for a little while, and then my daughter discovered CrossFit. Heather, she was going to school at University of San Diego. She was a diver, actually. I had encouraged her from gymnastics into diving, and so she ended up being a diver all 4 years at University of San Diego. And they were doing some CrossFit as cross training for their diving. And so she started doing that, and she ended up just started telling me about this new sport she had discovered. And she ended up, after she graduated, she was an accounting major, got a job, but she was looking for a CrossFit gym, and she just stumbled on Invictus. We had no idea about anything about CrossFit. We didn't know who was who, and she had no idea Invictus was one of the best gyms in the world in CrossFit. And met CJ, started training there, and fairly soon they recognized her as being above average, and they asked her to start training with the competition group. And then from there, a month or so later, they said, well, maybe you should be like an alternate on the team, start training with the competition team, actually. And then once regionals came out and there was a lot of gymnastic stuff, being a former gymnast and being strong, they asked her to be on the team for regionals. So that was in 2013. But it was during that phase that she and she started telling me about CrossFit, and I'd go out to visit. And I did my first CrossFit workout, I think, out there. She was doing an internship before Invictus, and I did my first CrossFit workout at CrossFit Signal Hill out there near LA, and it just was exactly what I wanted to do. And I was still doing triathlons at the time, but I came home to to my area in Tennessee where I'm living, and found a local CrossFit gym, and it's just a super awesome group of people. There was probably 100 members. It's a bigger gym than what you normally see, and but the coaches there were super encouraging, and I started doing that I thought I was just going to do it to help my triathlons, some cross training. But I remember the first workout I got into was I can't remember the name. I can't remember if it was Fran or something similar to that. And I'm on the floor after like 3-4 minutes, and it's like, here I am training triathlon, thought I was in the best shape of my life, and I'm on the floor. These guys are still working out. It's like, okay, I have just discovered a new level of fitness, and I want everything that I can do, everything about that. And so that's when the wake up call came, and it's like, you know what, I want to do this. And so that's kind of where I got my start in CrossFit.
So how much did that really energize you? The fact that you had found something that really you couldn't conquer physically.
Yeah. I mean, that was just like, that was all it took. It's like, there is another level of fitness and that I have not discovered yet. And I want to do that. And that's what I'm going to focus on. And I think that year I stumbled through the 2012 Open. Never heard of the Open before, never knew what it was, and couldn't do double unders, but I could do muscle ups. I mean, I could do muscle ups the first day I walked into the gym for some reason. It's just always been that way. But I got through the 2012 Open, and I think one of the guys said, this guy could make the games. And I thought, well, maybe there's a chance for the next year. So I just started focusing just on CrossFit that whole summer, training at their gym. And then in the fall, I got to go out and visit. This was the fall of 2012. Go out and visit Heather at Invictus, and I met Tino and I met CJ, and I think Mike Bergner was also out there. Cody Bergner was there, and just kind of like I just got to train, and kind of like get an introduction into what real CrossFit training was all about, seeing this firsthand. And so I went back, this was in the fall of 2012, and went back and started implementing the CrossFit competition WODs. And it was way over my head. And I think I was doing, like, I remember doing 185 cleans, and it's like my max at the time was probably 200, and my wrists were in terrible pain every night, but I just kept doing it. They didn't break, so it's like, okay, I must be okay. And so I just kind of like got over my head, but it really got me ready for the 2013 Open, and I was just hoping to make that top 20, and I ended up winning the 2013 Open, and it just kind of like everything changed at that point for me, and then I just became even more focused than I was before.
Yeah. By the way, something just kind of popped up in my head that we talked about earlier that I haven't revisited. And all this physical activity and everything else you're doing, you never had a neck problem again? I mean, you said you were in a halo for crying out loud for a couple of months.
No, I never did. Although, as I look back, I know I've had some kind of, what's interesting, that's a great question, because I've kind of learned over the years, it was more of a muscular thing than anything. And that's kind of what I've learned, like the last, being at the games for 6 years, you got to deal with injuries quickly and you got to get better fast. So you have to be able to diagnose, okay, is it muscle? Is it joint, ligament, bone? And I found 95% of the time it's muscle. And the way you deal with that is through trigger point release or massage therapy. And some of the stuff I learned, from Heather, because they've got all kinds of great bodywork people out there, great massage therapists. And then getting to the games and getting introduced to Arasti people has just been huge in body maintenance stuff. And so I figured out how to get better fairly quickly, like really quickly, whenever I'd have some kind of injury, and including my neck. In fact, realizing, and being a dentist, having my head down pretty much all day, every day for years, my neck has got some knots in it, but I've been able to work through that and work that out with, lacrosse balls and massage therapy and those kinds of things, trigger point release, and all the stuff that Arasti does, all kind of in the same boat. But yeah, great question. And never had, and I continue to be, I think, obviously more mobile, even though I'm into my getting to my mid 60s actually. And, still things I wish I had done, man, when I was in my 40s, cause there's still some mobility areas that are challenging, but for the most part, I've been able to, overcome all those mobility issues. Very, very thankful and fortunate for that.
He is Dave Hippensteel, our guest this week on Kill the Quit, brought to you by Killcliff. Again, I'm your host, Mark Zinno. So you're doing all the CrossFit stuff. When do you stumble upon the CrossFit Games themselves, and how much of a challenge was that for you?
it was just like it was meant to be. I mean, I looked at that and I just everything inside me started screaming, "This is what I want to do." And I mean, I think I look back at my life and it's like I'm a dreamer. I'm always dreaming about stuff, and I think that's part of who I am, and I think it's a part of it should be a part of everybody. I remember hearing I used to watch the Hawaii Ironman triathlons. I remember seeing a 70-year-old one year finishing, and it was it was a special that they do every year, and they televise the Hawaii Ironman. And John Tesh was the narrator, I think, at the time. But there was a 70-year-old guy finishing the triathlon and saying, "A man loses his dreams and he's dead." And it's kind of like that quote just kind of resonated with me and kind of stayed with me. And I'm a dreamer. I dream about gold medal. I dream about winning, and I think I've had that dream all my life. And to see that come about at the CrossFit Games, it was huge, because there were certainly times when I'd be dealing with painful wrists or painful shoulders, knees, whatever, and there's that part of you that's like, man, should I quit? Is this too much for my body? Should I stop? And it's like, but that's just never been part of my vocabulary. It's never been part of my thinking. I think my dad ingrained that in us. A quitter was one of the worst things in the world you could ever think about doing. And so I don't know. It just kind of was always that way for me. And so you kind of visualize your dreams and you hold on to it. You stay focused, and then you let things fall where they may. And it just happened for me. It happened to be with some gold medals.
So what was it like standing up on that podium and winning?
It was unbelievable. I mean, it was the first year, it was awesome. It was an amazing experience. Being there, getting through it. I was pretty injured actually going into the last day, but I still got through that day and finished strong. And for me, this third gold medal was the most meaningful and I don't know why or what it was, but for some reason, after the first gold medal, I was ready. I started, as soon as I got back, I think I rested 2 days. And I started focusing on the next year, and then when I got that second gold medal, that was just like, this is amazing. This is so awesome. I love this, and I think maybe I relaxed. Maybe I took a week off at the end of that year, and then started focusing on this third one, and I really thought it was impossible. I thought it was an impossible dream, but it's like it's just like, this is what I do. I'm going to stay focused. I'm going to do everything I can to hit all my weaknesses and make any weakness into a strength, keep my strength strong, and see what happens. And I was just amazed that this year actually went the way it did, because I did the liftoff, I think, for the first or second time, and ended up winning that. And then the Open, I won the Open again this year. That was the first time I won the Open since 2013. I hadn't really won an Open. In the qualifier went really well, and then that third gold medal, man, it was just it was too good to be true. So
well, that's amazing. I mean, congratulations on all the success, and honestly,
yeah.
With every undertaking, you've seemed to have crushed it from start to finish. And again, while by design, it almost seems from the outside looking in, these things just kind of sort of stumbled in front of you. They ended up in front of your path, and you just overcame them all, just like going all the way back to your decathlon days, just leaping over a hurdle that was bigger than you, and you have been able to overcome all this stuff, and 3-time champion. It's absolutely amazing.
Yes, thank you so much. I mean, it was a tough one. This year was definitely the toughest. There was a lot of challenges that I had to, I really had to stay focused and control that. Control your thinking outside of the competition. Also,
are you going back for a fourth?
Nights. Well, I'm already training as if I am. I'm not sure. I'm hoping that they're still going to have masters. There's all that talk out there. Nothing official from HQ yet, I guess, as to what the format's going to be and everything. So, I'll tell you, it's tough to balance the two offices with training and I'm training right now as if I'm going back, but I'm hoping I can balance everything. It'd be nice to have a little bit freer time to be able to train more, and I think that'd be better. But it's still within the realm of possibility for sure.
Well, I'm sure if it doesn't happen, you'll find a new physical challenge to overcome sometime before you perish from this earth. There certainly is plenty more left for you to do. He is Dave Hippensteel, again, 3-time reigning Masters champion at the CrossFit Games in the 60 and over division. It's been an amazing story. It's been an amazing career, if you will, and certainly a blessed life. But you've done it all, brother, and we certainly appreciate you joining us.
Hey, thanks so much, man. It's great. It was an honor being on here. I love talking about this.
Dave Hippensteel, thanks for being part of Kill the Quit, brought to you by Killcliff. I am your host, Mark Zinno. Hope everybody has a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next week.
WFOM and W292 EV Marietta, a Dickey broadcasting station. Live from the Wellstar Health System Studios. 1230 and 106.3 FM, The Sports X.